Hey, I'm going to do some pendants, and I'm going to pass these around, and I can do these relatively quickly. Uh, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen these. Oh, and the other thing I didn't talk about either with the glue boost, that's also glue boost on those. That's a glue boost finish on those. But you can do a static piece. It doesn't have to be spinning on the lathe. You can stop the lathe and just wipe it on, and turn it as you go around. And I actually do uh, knife handles, a few of those, and I've actually put scales on a knife handle, and then just wiped on the glue boost several coats, sand it and finish it, and it looks the same. Comes out really good. Where I don't think I could ever do that with CA. So we're going to make a pendant, and there are jigs available for this. You could buy jigs, and I started doing these before they had the jig. So there's an offset jig that you can buy, and you can offset it and all that. And better yet, if you talk to Tony, he made a jig, and it's really slick, where you can put your blank on there, and then you can offset it, and he's got a screw where you can do it. It's really slick. And I have the plan for it, but I haven't made mine yet. But when I started doing this, I thought, well, I'm not going to spend $100 on a jig, that you could play around with, and I thought I'll just do it like this. So essentially what I start out with is just a piece of wood, anything, and I just true it up. So I want this flat. And it's just a glue block. And we're going to do this tonight. I start out usually with like a 2x2, or, and what the size, how it comes out, you can see them two are different sizes. However you turn it, doesn't make any difference. And I just start out with a nice 2x2 square. The one thing you want to make sure that you do is sand the back. You want all to go through all your grits, sand the back, so it's finished. Back is done. All you need to do is put some kind of a finish on it. So what I used to do when I started doing these is double face tape, like we all did, right? And you can double face tape stuff onto the lathe, all kinds of stuff like that. And it works fine. The only thing is it doesn't come off that easy. Anybody that's ever, had to take your thumb and rub that glue off from that double face tape, you find out really quickly it's not fun. Um, I did a bunch of pieces for a friend of mine once, and they needed to be routed to a shape. So I had a template, and I double face taped the template down to the piece, routed it all off, and it was, about this big. So when I got done, pull that template off, and all that glue residue was on there. And I tell you, my thumb was sore from trying to get all that glue off of there again. So, and I'm sure many of you've seen this now. This is not new, and not something I came up with. So I use the blue tape and a couple drops of CA glue between, and it'll glue your piece onto the lathe in a hurry. So, and there's usually, and now I'm going to use just the regular CA. Use the cheaper stuff for this. A little bit of accelerator on there. And it doesn't take a lot. See, now this I can smell. The other stuff I couldn't that much. Just a little bit, doesn't take much, and fairly centered. And that'll glue that piece tight, or we can turn it. It's not going to come off. And the blue tape is easy to get off at the other end of it. Say, tight. It's good. So it didn't take much. some of that tape off there. So the first thing you really need to do is make a round, get your size that you want, wherever that may be. I like to use a bowl gouge for this. I got a little 3/8 inch bowl gouge. And you can kind of see where it would be round. You can kind of see there. Outside of that, you get that ghost image. So I know about where it's going to be round. And then she comes off. It made a liar out of me. Show's over. Right off.
What that was that you used it
For this?
for?
Oh, this? You know, I'm not 100% sure. It's just some stuff I had laying around. You know, it's light enough to be maple, but it's not maple, I don't think. The I didn't probably put enough or get enough area.
Wait, what?
Oh, the tape.
What?
No, it was the tape. Yeah, yeah. I was trying to cheat a little bit, not use so much. Okay, let's try this again. Oh, I got plenty on there. Well, and it squishes out a little bit too. But well, let's see if we can do it again. A little bit smaller. One of the things you got to make sure that you do is get that corner on that edge. And I actually undercut a little bit just to make sure I've got that all through like that. And then make your dome shape on the outside. And you don't want this even you got a little bit of a dome shape, but you don't want the center too high because then the hole, when you offset the hole, it's going to be too deep or a little bit deeper than it should be really. So they can be fairly thin. So that's pretty good for that. And I'll just sand that up real quick sand. You want to be a little bit careful you don't end up with a nub or a dimple in there. Like if you have the tailstock up, there could be a hole and you don't want that. Get that edge. The nice thing about these is you can use scrap. I mean, any kind of scrap you got laying around, it doesn't take much. I even did this one time. I made earrings like this, so I made tiny, small holes. Now you can do a glue boost finish on these, and actually the two that are floating around here, that I did that with those, and I did it in two different ways. The first time I did it, I offset, turned the hole, and then put on the finish, but then it's off center, so then it wasn't as easy to get that nice smooth finish on there. And the second time I did it, I put the finish on now on this side, and then offset it, and then just glued the offset, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't too terrible. Okay, now we got to make a hole in it. I didn't bring a utility knife, so carefully pull it off. Yeah, this we don't need on there now. See, and that's where that glue was now. It separated the paper or separated the tape. I'm gonna clean that up real quick just to make sure it's flat. Pitch. Okay, same deal. Put on the tape. And the tape trick with the super glue or CA glue like this, it works for a lot of things. You can just glue two flat pieces of wood together. If you need to do a template or something like that, it works for that too. And you can easily get it apart. The only reason to cover the back more is just to make sure that we don't get glue through. Yeah, I used to do it that way. The drawback is you've got that glue residue from that tape. And it's kind of a, what? It's still going to end up with some kind of residue, unfortunately.
Whether it's blue or the green.
No, no, it doesn't matter at all. Yeah, no, that'll work. So now we want to do our offset. So we're going to do that offset hole, like you can see on the on those. And one quick thing that I'm going to do, I want to see where the center is. So that hole will be about that size. So that'll tell me now when I want to stick this on here, I can kind of look at it and go, okay, but where do I want the hole? And this particular piece, you can see it's got a nice grain pattern. So you want to put the hole in the right place, right? So I know where it's going to be, and now I can look at it and I think I'm going to put it here in the wider part, and then I can just stick it on. And then you got to make sure that you offset. You need to offset enough to make the hole, but don't offset too much because the hole will make that top too thin. And so you want to make it a little bit more. This is medium.
Medium.
Yeah. The thin would run off on you, and you'd end up with it all over your fingers. Okay, so I'm going to place this so that I'm just off center with enough, and then the hole is going to be in that part where there's not as much grain. So you can orient it to kind of the way you want it to look. You can change that orientation. Now, the drawback of doing this or a jig or like Tony's jig, where he can now offset a little bit real quick that way or this way, or you can change your offset pretty quickly where now this is a little more screwing around where you got to put the tape on it, readjust it and that sort of thing. So this is more of, I guess, a down and dirty kind of a way to do it. But when I started doing pendants, this is how I did it. I'm like, I'm not buying a jig. I'll figure it out. And so this is how I did it. And I did a bunch of them like this. So now you can see it's off center. And I like to use a skew and just use the point. Liar. So now I can look a little bit where it's at. And it's a little bit lower than it needs to be, but it'll work fine that way. And you just cut in the hole. See, now you can see you kind of see I'm through. And you can make the hole any size you want. And then once you've got the hole, now you can kind of see how that looks. Now you kind of see the hole. So what I want to do now is just soften that a little bit, these outer edges, and just kind of so I kind of work that a little bit with the edges with the skew, kind of like a scraper, and just round it off a little bit. And then I can come back in and see how she looks now. So if that's not too bad as it is, I could go a little bit more. So, you know, you can kind of see that really, but so I've got it kind of softened and then I've got the good enough hole and then we can sand that up a little bit real quickly. Probably don't need to go all full of grits either. And this is where you can see that if you wanted to GluBoost it like this, it's a little more difficult because if you slap it on the other side, then you're not going to get it polished as nice. Um, and I lay these on a board and spray them with lacquer, and it works really good. And the lacquer holds up, and you don't have to worry about it drying or any of that, or holding up to a lot of touch. So, and that's pretty much.
Have you ever tried drilling a hole and then opening it up with a skew, bevel it afterwards?
Why? Why?
Well, then you got a mess.
Then you got to.
Then you don't have a sharp edge on the backside.
Well, there's not because they undercut it. Well, and the other thing is too is now when I take it off. Um, yeah, you got a little bit of edge there. Now it's gone. So it just takes that much. And it's not that critical anyway. There, that's it around. The hole isn't that critical anyway because you're gonna just and I used to well, part of these that I always hated is actually doing the jewelry part. And I used to buy leather cord and then put the ends on it so that you could clip it. And then I would just do a little loop knot on, through that. And I hated doing that part. I couldn't find anybody else to do it, so I quit making them. But it works real slick, and you know you're never going to touch that hole anyway, so it's just there for looks. And like I said, you spray it up with lacquer now, and you get that nice sheen. And the other interesting thing with those too is, you know, I did a lot of different wood ones, and zebra wood actually worked really, really well because you had that nice grain. Now I'd be tempted to take zebra wood and stick it in the bleach and make one that way. That would be fun. That would be interesting. Um, but I used to do corian, and you can buy corian samples. You can contact the corian company, and they'll give you a whole box of little 2-inch squares of samples. Well, they work great, and corian cuts just like any other kind of material like that. It cuts real easy. My wife's favorite one is actually a piece of black corian, and it's solid black corian, and she loves that one. So it works really well. But they got all the colors you can think of, and any kind of wood works. Anything you got laying around that's scrap, it can be burl, um, and you can get real creative. And if you talk to Tony, he'll send you his plan, and you can make his jig, and then you can make little marks and other things on it, and that sort of thing. So it's pretty slick. So. Any other questions on those or?
The sandpaper you use.
It's the professional, what do they call it? Norton Professional. They've got it upstairs. It comes in sheets, 9x11 sheets, and then I cut it up into 5.5 by 1-inch strips, and I collate them all so they're all in order. So then now I just go through the orders, and when they're bad, throw them out. I cut up enough ahead of time. Where else whatever I did with them, but so I always got a stack of them, and I just grab another one. And when the stack gets down, and I cut up a bunch more. And it used to be Norton 3X. I don't know how many years ago I used to buy it that way, and then all of a sudden they changed the name and everything else, but it's still the same stuff, and it holds up pretty well. And if anybody's used any of these, they got these little boxes with the rolls of sandpaper on. No good. The sandpaper goes away so fast. I mean, you use it so fast because it doesn't hold up, and that's where this stuff. I can do 3-4 pens easily with just one sheet like this, and where the other stuff it just doesn't hold up and doesn't seem to cut. I even went so far as they had some that are more like a mesh, and I tried that too, and it just doesn't hold up. It's not as good. So, anything else? Thanks.
John, that was entertaining, informative. You certainly appreciate it.
I got to knock a piece off the lathe once.
Yeah.
No, no, that's the nice thing about it. They're small. So
Okay, well, I think that's wrapped up the meeting for tonight. And that's on for panel on selling your work. Good night.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.